Okay, so we're gonna get going. First off, thank you all for being here. We got more people than we've got chairs, so this is being streamed both to the main lobby and the conference room. It's also being recorded if you want to go back and see it at a later date. We haven't had an all hands. I don't know how long. Yeah, I've got a file that I was looking at and putting together the few slides that I have. Okay. To look at it again today because there are my dates.
So switch pictures off.
We got
Go back
to some people or people that are newer with us and Juan, who started a few months back. Yeah, who I just met today, who came from Berry a couple months back. So we thought it would be a good idea for us to sit down and just kind of talk through some basic, fundamental project management kind of things, just so that we're all kind of on the same page. I don't believe that there's going to be anything talked about today that you haven't heard before, or we haven't discussed before, or processes that haven't been exposed to. At least I hope that's the case. So this is more just a refocus. Make sure we know where we are and hopefully want to go over the agenda just so you know what we're going to be speaking of. We're going to talk about the portal. We're going to talk about P&Ls. We're also going to talk about effective communication strategies, which is something that's very important for me personally. Then Matt is going to be talking about case codes and labor tracking as well as strategies. Lee, who unfortunately is ill, is promoted in to be presenting remotely. He's going to be talking about Textura, various customer portals that we have to deal with, as well as OSIP and CSIP, which is owner control or contractor control insurance, which is going from time to time. Mike Sanderson is going to talk about our overall philosophy and kind of the things that we believe make Western Allied different companies. And Jeff is going to close us out by reviewing closing out projects, which I saw the slides in advance of this meeting. Very good. There's a lot of stuff. It's actually a big deal. And it's something that could all be better. And as well as warranty. Okay, the portal. Everybody's familiar with the portal? Yes? You go. The IT guys gave us all a little icon, and it's got 9, 10, 12 things on it, right? All right. There's 3 things that I just kind of want to talk about. You may or may not know about them because a couple of them are kind of new. The first one is not new, and it's billing. That's how we submit our billing to accounting. We use the portal to ask you some basic questions. What's the job name? What's the job number? How are you billing? Percentage? Are you attaching the schedule of values, or are you just billing the number? And then it prompts you to give me that information. That's your name, your email address, and then that goes to our construction billing email, which is a generic email that a number of people in accounting see. And that's how you submit your billing. Is everybody doing that? Okay. There's a lot of other things to talk about with respect to billing. So I'm asking you to talk about later, so I can record. I also had intended to log into my computer to go through this, but that's because of the remoting and the broadcasting. So I don't need to go with that. So I meant to have a show. You can use the back up. You may or may not know, but Anna, because our billing is having some health issues, so she has not been in accounting for a couple of weeks, and we're not really clear when she's going to be back. So Shelby has been doing that. So the one thing I would say about billings is, in addition to make sure you're using construction billing email, please try to get your billings in early because they're playing catch up in accounting because they're down a person. And although Shelby's very capable, she's doing something new. You know what I'm saying, or something that she hasn't been doing on a day-to-day basis. So any grace you can give her by getting it in early is only helping you. Permits. Likewise, there is a permit section on the portal where you can pull basic permits. It asks you some basic things. What's the job? Where's it at? You know, and that then goes to purchasing, and purchasing will pull the permit. A couple of caveats about this. That only works for permits that can be pulled online. All right. We do a ton of permits in the city of LA. 99% of the time they're pulled online. Works great. If it is a permit at a city where we have to physically go to the counter to pull the permit, that's a project management function. That's something that you guys roll in that instance because we have to go to the counter to pull the permit. Inspections. Likewise, with the permits, inspections, there's a tab. You click on that, it asks you some basic questions. Job name, what's the job number, what's the permit number, what kind of inspection do you need? Is it a rough, is it a pre-wrap, is it a final, whatever. Again, that goes to purchasing and they will schedule for you. Kind of jumping ahead to effective communication, if it is urgent or important, do not rely on the portal solely. It requires you to actually make a phone call to the people in purchasing or go see them. Hey, this is important. I got to have this. It needs to happen this day, this time, or whatever the special directions are. There is a place where you can write the special directions, and you need to do that because that goes to everybody in purchasing, and they divvy up how these things get taken care of. Because Stephen is very active in a lot of the permits, but sometimes Alex does, or sometimes Elizabeth does. That's why it's important that you don't silo the information to just Alex or just Elizabeth. You need to use the purchasing. You can still do it yourself. Be my guest. If you wish to do it yourself, you're more than welcome to.
This growth was just my
Full permits, inspection.
It's good. It's still good.
Again, if there's specific directions, you can make sure.
It's good to see what's being forecast.
Okay, P&Ls. P&Ls are due the last Friday of the quarter, and that's January, April, July, and October. It is the same 4 months every year. P&L should never, ever be a surprise. And the reason I say that is because we always need to be doing a better job of taking our time. County is a very time schedule driven department. They do everything in a time frame. They have certain things that have to happen at certain times. It's hard for us to kind of get our head around that, because we deal with, hey, an anvil just got over the sky today right now. I got to deal with this right now. That does happen in projects. Counting is not like that. So it is very important that we get the P&Ls in on time. It is a constant thing to where every quarter we have lists of people that are 2, 3 weeks late. It's just not cool. It disrupts the accounting department. It makes reports that come to the ownership late or incomplete. And that diminishes our visibility on things. So we need you to get them done on time. Price, you all know what they're going to be due. Get started early. I mean, just, you know, whatever it takes.
Connection.
As far as how we project, I always project less. I think the job's going to make $100. Okay, that's great. I tell them it's going to make 50 until the job is done. I always feel better going back to the projection, adding more money to the bottom line than having to take money away because I was overly optimistic. So as a general philosophy, it's better to project less and add later once the job is done. Because inevitably there's always things that happen, stuff we didn't think of. We got a call back because something broke or whatever, and then you ended up with more startup time than you weren't anticipating. whatever the case may be. Overall philosophy, project less, promise less, deliver more. Coming back a quarter later and adding more money to the bottom line is totally acceptable and actually a great thing.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
Your year-end projection is a little bit different than the rest.
Okay.
And specifically with that one, I would assume with all your quarterly projections, you're talking to your team leader and strategizing about what you're going to project as profit. But specifically on your final, the October year-end projection, that's where you're going to be a little more accurate and realistic. If it's further along, you may not be as conservative in that projection.
It's really a function of how far the job is done. That is correct. I mean, obviously, at the beginning of the job, there's no reason to be super optimistic. Saying, at the very beginning of the job, you're walking into the unknown in a lot of. It's better to be more conservative in general. What Mike said is correct. At year end, we want to be as accurate as possible, and depending on the phase you are in the job will allow you more or less latitude. The job is just starting in October. Obviously, the philosophy of project less and add more later would make sense, especially if the job's got a long extension. Open POs. So I don't know how this happens, but it happens frequently. We have POs that were cut for $1,000. We were only billed $980. So there's $20 hanging out there, right? That shows up as committed costs on your projection, on your P&L, right? For whatever reason, the invoice is $980 and you're not getting another invoice, right? So that PO needs to be closed out so that you can realize that $20 net gain to your job.
Can we do
Happens with subcontracts
Is
as
it
well.
okay to just do that at the end of the job?
Yes, that's when you need to be doing it, is at the end of the job. When that gets back into how we're doing, so especially if you're near the end of the job and you're at your end, you want to make sure that you're closing out the open POs. It happens really frequently. I went through it at the end of last year and picked up like $75,000 in open POs and subcontracts for jobs throughout the year that have just not been closed out. So it can turn into real money. When you're looking at your P&L, your committed costs, if the job is done and your committed costs versus your actual costs are different and your committed cost is more, that's a surefire sign that you have open POs. You can see that information by looking in Spectrum. And as far as closing the POs, you need to work with purchasing on that. Zero on specific POs, you can just come to work with the whole job. You need to be careful though. So you need to understand what it is that they're closing out, because you don't want to close out, say, a subcontract,
So
full contract.
so we comes in.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Cutting to the next
when that
one.
invoice comes in, it's all kinds of chaos in accounting, and they get paid and whatever.
I remember to do something with the office.
So when the job is done, and you know it's finished, you need to make the effort to understand that you don't have any open commitments. So that you're able to understand exactly what the costs are. Quick question.
Is it an accurate statement to say that if you're on the P&Ls, if your job is fallen to the inactive line down below, that it has no open commitments, or could it still be down there inactive with open commitments? Okay.
Yes, the short answer is yes, it could be. But one thing that keeps jobs that are done from falling inactive is when there are open commitments there.
These guys want to try
When you get your projections and you get that one or two jobs on there, stuff you've done for 2 quarters, why am I projecting this? You've got open commitments on the job and the county's waiting for an invoice for whatever, right? So that is another thing to create a job for yourself, is by making sure your jobs are tight and close up at the end, and accounting them will be able to put them below the line and projecting the job again.
And that only happens at quarters. The individual quarter is when the decision is made to change.
So So Vic doesn't go through and force close any open POs,
No.
like a year down the road or nothing. That money will just
That
stay.
is not an account.
It depends. Well, the answer is depends. If it's a small amount, couple of bucks, $20, they'll just close it out themselves. If it's a large amount, then he's gonna keep it open. He's gonna notify me and I'll chase you.
All of us.
And I recommend just everybody, they'll chase you. And usually it's a lot of trickle effect.
It's better just to go through and do it a couple months after.
Chad, can you hear me, Chad?
Let accounting use it as a line of demarcation, but I know that I had a job on my, that kept showing up, I had an open commitment for $60. So, it is not accounting's job to make a determination about whether the open commitments are valid or not. They can't make that decision. They don't know the project. They just know that I got a PO for $100. I've only been billed 80. Save it. As far as I know, there's $20 out there that we're gonna get a bill for. And, in understanding cash flow and commitments and all this, it's a valid.
And it's only a 5 minute, not even 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Open up Spectrum, go to job, you can do it either way. Go to job cost history, or you go to POs. And it'll tell you open, close, open, close, open, close.
Lastly, everybody should be using our main estimating template for both estimates, change orders, and P&Ls. There is that document does change from time to time, more specifically labor rates. Sanderson usually updates that. I think it's working through 23, 4, and 5 now. If you look at the labor rate tab, it'll say June of 23, June of 24, 25. If you are working on an estimate sheet that says anything other than those, you're like, oh, so if you are concerned about that in any way,
I
we
just
talk
bumped
to
it.
somebody. Mike, you can show you where it is.
Any new
Hey, Chad.
estimate, sorry,
Chad,
go back to the
Chad.
share drive.
Grab the master.
Can
you hear me, Chad?
I don't always send out an email and say, hey, I need that. You know what I mean? Don't rely on a template that you saved on your C drive. You shouldn't be saving it on C drive anyway.
No, it should be on the share drive, and there is a shortcut. There is a shortcut that's created to take you to that file. That's what I use. I use the shortcut and it takes me to the estimates or whatever it's been.
Chad,
I
can you
make
hear
it
me,
very,
Chad?
I make it a habit, when I'm estimating in general, to always look at the labor tab.
Hey, Lee, I don't think he can hear you.
the reason why I just want to relay that I can't hear him because there's some chatter in the background.
Yeah, I'm talking to Rich about that right now. I'm trying to figure out why
Now, we're getting close to June.
So,
Derek, I think you brought it up a couple days ago. Now, it's defaulting to June of 23. If you're bidding a job right now, there is a good chance that you're gonna be beyond that period, so we probably should look at making a change, but if for now, go back there and change that tab if it needs to be changed.
Okay, so if there's any questions about what template on file, please ask. Don't, asking questions is a good thing.
Oh, can I, on that one, is the running P&L function on the estimate still, does that work still?
Yeah.
Last time I tried, it wasn't, who should I contact if it's just giving me some error, like a debug and debug
That
thing?
guy behind you.
Behind me?
Yeah.
Well, that could be because you've got a erroneous input in one of the cells. Maybe you don't have the job number correct.
Maybe your security settings on there.
Security settings.
Yeah. If something comes up, some weird error.
Okay, effective communication. I want to start with, I come from the school of nothing beats actual conversation. We fall into the trap, including me, who just said what I said, of relying on emails and text messages. Very powerful tools, can be used for a lot of things. They are not the most effective way to communicate with people. It's just something that we're gonna have to learn to live with. Nothing will ever replace an actual conversation. I've had younger people working for me from time to time, and I start seeing the email ping pong. And by the third one, I pick up the phone, this would have been done already. A 5-minute conversation and it'll eliminate, you know, a lot of ambiguity and save yourself time. So, just some good notes with that kind of backdrop. We want to be simple in communicating, simple as possible. I looked up, you know, I did a little research, you know, what are effective ways to communicate? There's a gazillion things you can look at on the internet. So I kind of distilled it down to these 7 things. I probably should have put number 7 first because that's how I started talking. Nothing takes place in an actual conversation. But simple. Avoid acronyms, jargon, cliche kind of stuff. We all use that kind of stuff. It does happen. We all used to the alphabet soup. That does happen. But you have to be aware that sometimes there's people in the audience that may not know that or understand that. I was at a training seminar last week, and there was multiple times people were using these acronyms, and I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So now you force, so now rather than paying attention to what they're talking about, I'm thinking, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, whatever, to figure that out. Be prepared, do your homework. Especially when you're going to a meeting, you know, try to anticipate what questions am I going to get asked? What is the customer going to ask me? The game, I play this game with myself regularly, you know, it's just a way of being prepared. Now, sometimes you get asked something that you're not prepared for. That does happen. So people have crazy ideas, but we've all been doing this a long enough that we, you know, we should have a good feel for if I'm going to a project meeting, what am I going to get asked? Who's, you know, what are the important things to the people that I'm going to be in front of? What are they going to want answers? So we can be prepared. Some meetings I prepare what's called a talking points memo. I actually sit down and write them down. What are the things that I need to make sure that I'm going to talk about in this meeting? What are the important things to me? It's a very effective tool, and it just helps you to prepare so that you don't get caught going, oh, well, you know. If you don't legitimately know the answer to a question, that's a fair statement. I don't know, but it needs to be followed with, I will find out, or I will look into, or I will get you the information. Don't leave people hanging because they're asking you for something, whether it's information or whatever. They're saying, I need this from you, so can you give? That's not good. I don't know, but I will find out. Arguments are more persuasive when you can back them up with industry standards, industry practice, the drawings say, the specifications show. I should have reversed that, but you get what I'm saying. If you have just hanging your hat on, well, this is what I think, or this is how I feel, it's great for you, but that's not great for the customer in all situations. That's not going to work. It's always better if you can refer back to, this is why I'm making this statement. It's good engineering practice that, or like I said, the drawing showed this. You need to ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the customer. That's a way that you can engage with them, show them that you are engaged, and also so that you can get understanding. Here's the most important part about asking questions. You got to listen. I have a hard time with this sometimes. I admit it. Because I've already got a pre-formed, it's, you know, the conversation's already running in my head. I already know that. Yeah, I already know it. Yeah, I already. Slow down, listen to what they're saying to you. It's very important. You know, the old saying, you got one mouth, 2 ears, and you should use them in those proportions. That is a true statement. But you want to ask as many questions as possible because that helps you to qualify the customer. Qualifying the customer is important. Why? They want. You find out what that number one. It helps you to manage the customer. It helps you to manage their expectations. It helps you to manage them overall. You can't do that unless you know what they need, what they want, what they expect. Body language is a super important thing. There are multiple studies out there, and if you want to go searching on the internet, you can find them where they talk about in-person body language and tone of voice are actually more important than what you're talking about. Even if you don't realize that you're picking up on those things, you are. And it is it's an interesting tool when you're in a meeting and you're in front of people. Pay attention to the body language. That guy doesn't care. That guy's really nervous about whatever. You know what I'm saying? That can help you to assess the situation and figure out what am I going to say next to diffuse the situation, make them feel better, whatever the case may be. But it is something to, your mind is picking up on it, whether you know it or not, you know? But if you can put yourself in a frame of mind that I'm actually paying attention to these things as a source of information, very useful. Lastly, and I've kind of said, ask questions, ask people what you need, but you need to do it in a passive voice. I really need help with. Can you please assist me with? People don't like being demanded. Give me. I want. These are not good ways to start conversations, written or verbal. It would really be helpful to me if is a better way of going about that. And don't be afraid, especially when you're dealing with superintendents or project managers. You got to ask for what we need too. It helps us to be more efficient, right? It helps us to be more profitable and all these things that we're trying to do. So we need to be asking for things that we need on the job. The worst they can say is no. The last thing that I would add is make notes on myself. So, our superintendents, two things. They're always asking for as much notice on things as possible. Yes, animals fall out of the sky. That does happen, and you don't have any notice. Please don't put off to tomorrow what you can tell them today. It's important to them. They're scheduling lots of people, and they've got a lot of you to keep happy. And it's just better for everybody if you can give them as much lead in on information as possible, specifically with scheduling. Another note on scheduling. We all need to interface with the foreman on the job. We all have to talk to the foreman regularly on the job. That's part of what we do. It's how we keep track of what's happening. It's how we track labor, et cetera, et cetera. We cannot, and this happens a lot with the startup guys more than any, move guys around without the superintendent knowing. It is not our job to call up guy A and say, hey, I need you here like in 10 minutes. You can't do that. Now, maybe he does need to go and maybe he will go. But you've got to involve the superintendent. They are in charge of moving the guys around, because what you don't know is what everybody else in this room is working on and all of their deadlines. The superintendents know that. And the superintendents will find a way to accommodate your need. You may not get the guy you want. It may not be as perfect as you want. They will accommodate your need. But what we don't want to do is be calling up the foreman and putting pressure on them to pull off the job that they're on and move to some other job because you have a need. Please deal with the superintendent. Yes.
Does that apply to that foreman working on one of your projects and you need him to go to another one of your projects? Or
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Even if it's another one of your jobs. I get it. Hey, this is my guy. He's doing that job and that job and the other job. What difference do you care where I do it? I understand. We still need to let the superintendents know and involve them as part of that conversation. They're the ones that are responsible for every guys.
I know sometimes Robert, for example, will give you permission to go ahead and call the foreman directly once he knows about it. If you have a problem with your job.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, and totally acceptable. Totally fine. I'm not saying don't call the guy and let him know, hey, I got a problem here and we need to address this. That's great. He needs that information. It's just the superintendent has to be involved in knowing what's going on in the schedule and where the guy's going to be and where he needs to be.
The other thing to consider when doing that is who that foreman's working with. You know, he might be working with somebody who's not suitable to be left alone. So now you're gonna take a group of 2, 3 guys together, right? If it's a foreman and 2 superintendent, and you're gonna send them to a job that's, now you got 3 guys on a job that's a 1-man job.
Or
It
you're
happens.
working in a
It happens.
commercial environment where guys have badges, and things like that. and
Yeah.
you've got, I got a
Sometimes-
red badge and 3 green badges, and I can't have mixing or
Yeah.
whatever, so.
It can create some issues sometimes.
Long story short, involve the superintendent. Yes, sir.
What if the communication doesn't go the other way either? Sometimes we request, sometimes we include the right people, they just never get back to us, or they just send someone without even telling us. What do we do then?
Talking to first, in your case, you would need to be talking to Lee, and that's something that we would be talking to with superintendents on our weekly fighting. I know the superintendents are not off the hook for not communicating back to the administrator. So if you're having that kind of issue, communicate it to Lee or one of us. And we will be sure that it comes up in our weekly Friday. We have a weekly Friday meeting with the superintendents. We go over all the jobs, what's going on, what's happening, among other things. So we'll be happy to talk about it and write it up. If guys are not being responsive, that's not okay. And we want to make sure. Help, ask. If you're needing help, if you're having issues with labor for whatever reason, talk to one of us. Let us know what's going on so that we can help you. But we will. And you can't address things that we don't know.
And Delia, I'll make sure that's corrected, Delia.
Dropping it doesn't make your situation better. Okay. Okay, Matthew is up.
So pre-COVID, we introduced sub-phase codes, which some of you may already be using. But what that means is we have phase code by, labor category, ID, scab, sorry. And traditionally, guys, in charge of time, those of that, sometimes there was detailing and field, and that was as far as it was broken down. What we've done now is create a number of phase codes. So you've got sheet metal, I-beam, more piping categories over there that lists a number of activities, covers most of what we do. And that's all, I snipped that from our desk. That's where you can find it. So what this means is that you can, the time to set this up would be at the beginning of the job with your foreman, where you're pointing out that you want to have further breakdown of how their time is charged. So you've got like BAV high sides or mains or however you want to do it. You set that up at the beginning of the job. You tell them, I want this area to be charged specifically to this category. It ultimately all rolls up, like say sheet metal, you got mains, high side, boxes, whatever. It ultimately all rolls up to sheet metal. So when you're doing your P&L, you're going to see it. But this is meant for the purpose of tracking the job as it goes. So you can see, you're going out there seeing what's been done, and then you can go back, you can run, go into Spectrum and see what's been charged for that category, and you can track it against the progress that they've made. So this is where you're going to Spectrum. You can see it has all of the, if you go to the cost history, you can see all the different phases. So that's where you go to grab the hours to date that were charged in a specific category. And then down here was just something I created for one of my jobs where I have my labor budget, I have the quantity of whatever it is that we're installing, and then I'm tracking what's been installed to date and the hours to date, and then I can see how it compares to my budget. And it's just it's a tool for tracking. So you can use this a number of ways. You can use it if a job has a number of floors you want to track or different phases. You can tailor it to however you need to better track and more accurately track your job. So you know where it's at, early on as things are progressing. Eventually, we're going to probably want to do more with that. As far as being able to track production rates for certain things, it just informs our estimating, but that's another good reason to do this. So at the end of the job, you can see some category, taking so many hours per box or so many hours per piece of name or whatever it is. Then you know how to better estimate it, or you can look at it, dive into why was my estimate so far off in this specific category. Any questions on that?
So this is really just like a personal like PM breakdown. It's not like we're not compiling like time studies and like eventually we are.
Not yet, not globally for the company. It's really meant as a project management tool. And again, these are all in job time, which is how the foreman, the field guys charge their time. So it's all there. You just need to establish up front what your expectations are for charging their time.
Eventually, that's what we're trying to get.
If we have, one base code for VAV boxes, we're gonna know company-wide. We can pull metrics from that and understand what we're really doing.
Did Control Air get into pretty deep breakdown for different?
They had it a little bit more broken down than I feel like we currently have as ours, where it's just kind of like the main hours and detailing basically. So it was a little bit further down. They were doing time studies with it. But I was just wondering for us, they got foreman fought back on this with us.
Yeah, I've used it several times. And as long as it's not too arduous to break it down, you can get kind of ridiculous how detailed you want them to. I mean, because it all comes down to how accurately they're charging the time, the specific activity. You rely on that accuracy. But, I mean, in this case, I was just using the numbers, and I said this number, I give them a legend. This number is going to mean, all the outdoor ducts. This is going to mean all the large mains on the inside. This is the stage. So I kind of customized it to the job, but I had a legend, so I knew what I was tracking and what number it corresponded to.
Did you find them making any mistakes? I could see like, at the end of the week, you might go, wait, you were on the outside and you put yours on, and then try to go back and fix those. No?
I did it, but that's hard to identify.
Yeah. Ideally.
Yeah. I mean, you might see a number that doesn't make sense based on you walk the job and they had X number of boxes up and they have a number that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That might draw a red flag.
Okay.
You're relying on their accuracy.
Cool.
Sorry, any more comments, questions? Anybody using this?
Or maybe that I'm done right now. Have it evaluated. My thought is it's going to help out with estimating later on if you've got a good idea of
So this bottom spreadsheet you have, you just made that yourself and pulled data from Spectrum to get that, or?
Yeah, it's not automatically imported. It was like, we went out there, I was working with Saul on this project. He went out there, he highlighted the drawings, gave me an idea of percent complete, or feet, whatever quantity. We threw it in the spreadsheet and then we compared it to, where we were today.
Okay, but is there a way the actual estimate?
Not right now.
No, that's what we're working towards, because I just like going through Spectrum and seeing all this wouldn't really help me unless I had a spreadsheet. I feel like it's too clunky to look at in Spectrum. So did you somehow link this spreadsheet to Spectrum? No.
But you can filter in Spectrum, right, to get your data up there. You can filter out your face codes.
I mean, it's easier to see when you hand that out. But
it is tied into the piano.
Yeah, you get job cost, of P&L, it will tell you how much hours.
no, but it rolls up. to the single category.
Yeah, it rolls up to
Right.
total hours spent.
If you scroll down on the piano, there's a section down.
Oh, the P&L on.
Yes.
Oh, right, because that's actually, yeah, you're right. The import's there. Yeah, I mean,
I haven't used it yet, but there is a section down there. We can get input on things and make it work.
yeah, because ultimately that gets imported into your SUV, so you could take it from there. And I did it the hard way, but
Okay.
yeah, that's a good point. That might be rolled up though.
It's not, it is rolled up on the main part of the,
Those cells are hidden.
Down below that. Let me get the unhided.
Okay. Yeah, which means unprotected damage.
Yeah, this wasn't really hard to do. It makes a lot of sense when you break it down logically how it's estimated. And then you can really learn some good stuff. Like, find some things on here that took longer to take and. So
you'll probably find a lot of things that are taking longer on every job, and that way we can take it back to estimating it better.
Yeah, there's some.
Yeah, I've gone back to this and
specific-
estimated
Yeah.
based on these rates, the number of jobs that are similar. That's useful. Billing. So billing's simple when it's maybe owner direct and we're billing a percentage or a dollar amount. Most of the time with general contractors, we're billing, schedule of values. So typically, not always the case, but billing opens on the 15th. Is when the general contractor will allow us to submit our billing, and it'll close the 20th of the month. So timing, what you should be doing is have an idea before the 15th of where you're at on the job, where you're going to be through the end of the month. Because that's what we're billing. You're billing what you expect to be completed at the end of the month. And best practice is to get a draft in front of them before you actually formally submit. Because it avoids headaches if you submit it and then they reject it and you're doing all sorts of revisions and back and forth. It just creates a lot of problems. So it's better to get a clear draft in front of them before you actually formally process it. Materials stored. So it's a good idea to have an understanding going into the job if you're going to be getting equipment that we're going to be sitting on for a while, and what the process is going to be for billing. Sometimes it's as simple as taking pictures of equipment and nameplates, giving it to them for what you're going to build that's we receive and are storing. But other times it can be a much more difficult process that may not even be worth going through. So I would, if you know that's going to be the case for your job, I'd have the conversation up front to try to get an agreement, that, hey, we're going to get some equipment, we're going to sit on it for a month or two. We need to build, we're going to get an invoice for it as soon as we receive it. We want to be able to bill for it. What's that going to look like? So just be aware of that. Don't wait until you get it and like, oh, a month later, I want to bill for this. Then you have to run through this whole process and get insurance and provide invoices, and by that time it's probably not even worth chasing. But we need to get paid for equipment that we've received. The schedule of values. So the schedule, when you're setting up this at the beginning of the job, it's really your chance to set the course for the cash flow on the project. So it's important to put a good amount of thought into this and carefully understand how the project's going to be built, and how our cash is going to be going out. So this is just an example of one particular project. So you want to think about, like, on the upfront portion of the project, you're working on submittals, you're probably doing shop drawings. You can bill for those items, and you can try to cleverly, or however you want to do it, front load cash into those categories that are going to take place right up front. And then I generally try to keep the categories kind of large and such that, what's that? Vague or difficult for the GC to distinguish or argue with you. You got to think about it from that standpoint. So I don't go like piece by piece equipment. It's equipment, which means the equipment, the setting, crane, all of that. Or sheet metal, rough. I mean, yeah,
Like one of those ones.
you'll often get pushback on that because they want to be able to see things more granularly. But as a starting point, that's kind of the philosophy I go in with. So just give point. Was that? Yeah, exactly.
But you definitely need something in the submittal line, and especially if you're working with an outside contractor, that they're gonna say that it will bill for 25 to 30% of the contract as soon as they do this. You'd be surprised. You also, I mean, billing is not a bad thing. Most GCs are billing on a regular basis, and if you bill them, they get the bill. Someone look at it like, hey man, I'm putting a burden on this guy for billing them.
Yeah, he's not
If you
paying.
can bill him $1 million and he can get paid for it, you will easily take it in 2 seconds. It's okay to ask him, hey, how are you guys doing your billing structure? So
Yeah.
Another little strategy, you got outstanding change orders out there for work that we've performed, costs we've incurred. You obviously can't bill for it until you're issued a change order, but you have the conversation. Can I build that into my billing, on the base contract? So you're actually getting paid for that while they're sitting on our change orders. Or if it's something that we're
Yeah.
we're doing. Cost it.
You haven't sent me in,
Yeah.
other than you, I got an email from you saying you're good.
One thing to consider, most of the jobs that we're doing, the larger jobs with a general contractor where we would be using a schedule values does not have a large fee, a large net profit built into it, right? I mean, the days of getting 10% net profit are gone. It's been 15 years since we've done that, right? On the last column, there's usually a 10% retainage on this thing, right? So the profit, if they're retaining 10% and your net profit on the job is something less than 10%, we're in the hole the entire job. So that's talking about trying to stay cash positive. Keep that in mind that if it were apples to apples, you can't stay cash positive for the work that's getting done out there just because of that retainage that they're keeping.
Yeah. If job stays too, I mean, you get partial release of it.
So the check for that, we check the contract status and we check the billing, cost to date with burden costs, and then we want to get, should be maybe 10% over that burden cost.
Yeah.
If we could stay there, we're gonna be somewhat
Yeah,
cash
that's a good
positive.
point. You're actually doing your billing, that's your metric, you're checking this cost with all our overhead. That's what I'm trying to achieve in this particular billing cycle.
And what Ron's saying on the P and L, whatever P and L you're using, but if you're using our estimate template P and L, down on the very bottom section of it where your profit is shown, there's a little section on that that shows actual job cost to date, not committed, but actual job cost to date. And that's where you can go to make
But
sure.
does that include, because I use the contract status one, the one that you mentioned, does it include include the burden in there and their overheads and
Yeah,
stuff? Okay.
but it's also on the P and L spectrum. You can see that at the bottom, actual job costs, and it shows overhead. That's all I really wanted to talk about the student values. She isn't.
Don't forget the billing for the PM time, because depending on how big the job is, that PM dollars is quite a bit, so you want to get paid for your work, and include that on your schedule values.
You're actually putting that in the line item?
Yeah, I think
That's a good one. Yeah, because you're working through the whole job.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you're trying to bury your time in the front end.
Yep.
I know, one thing to say too, real quick, is like, at the beginning, when I first started, it was easy to get into, not easy, but I found myself getting the mindset sometimes where it was like, if I'm being honest in my head, I'm like, well, I probably could have billed for 5,000 more this month, but I'll get it next month. I mean, I'm here, they're gonna be here. But in reality, like, it really sunk in when I went to one of the project management institutes and they go over all the cash flow exercises. What you need to realize is that when you bill for this month, we're not getting paid for that for like 60 to 90 days when it's finally gonna come in. So, and that's very common. So it's like a lot of, if you send that billing in already at a deficit, understand that that deficit is now riding with this company for like 90 days. And, you know, and that happens month after month after month. You're always playing catch up. So if you can, near the beginning, like they touched on, front load some money, you can quickly get this a couple of months in where you're actually ahead of what you spent. And you can fight to keep it there. You always can't, but doing that and really understanding how important it is to try to build the most you can and help the company at least break even earlier really does help.
We're a bank for most of the jobs. We're financing all the jobs except for Jacob and Jeff's jobs. They get the bill up front, but thanks guys.
Pretty sweet. No, shoot for the moon, man. I mean, front load it like crazy and they come back to you and say, oh, no, it's too much. You're still gonna get more than if you just, you're gonna put on there less than what you can get. I guarantee you.
Oh, how about you?
Actually, Ian's up next.
Maybe.
Okay, guys, can you hear me? So I have the pleasure of giving some very exciting topics. The OCIP contractor and Textura invoice management. It's the next slide, which is the Textura payment management. It goes in hand of what Matt was discussing. This is just a program that, and most of you probably have ran into it, maybe some of you haven't. And it's usually it's used in the larger projects and larger direct client projects. The Textura is basically an internet web-based contractor invoicing and payment plan that these GCs have put together, and now it's becoming prominent with all the GCs using it. And again, it's on larger projects. I don't think the smaller end projects are seeing this. I'm getting a huge feedback. Anyway, the Textura has a cost impact to your project, and just to let you know, it could be substantial. And depending on what the GC has set up, it could be as much as a 1.5% price cost to your project. Typically, typically this setup reviewed during the bid document process. You'll see that basically the same comment that's in red. It's basically saying that all Textura information can be found under the general conditions and document folder. And that's where the percentage of your contract value cost will be associated with Textura. Your sub-tier contractors will also be charged, and not as much as these, of course, the subcontractors. So just be aware that you'll be seeing a cost impact on your project. And as I mentioned earlier, general contractor puts a line item on the bid process indicating that and separating the costs associated with the Textura, which helps a lot. You don't have to vary it in your estimate. Textura usually uses the schedule of values as was shown on Matt's information. And again, when you receive the contract for this project, notify the accounting department that this project, your project, will be using the Textura billings. They have already mastered the Textura software and know how to set up your projects in the Textura program. I'm not sure if you have any questions, information on this one. Okay. Owner and contract control insurance, OCIP and CCIP. Some of you probably don't know who the gentleman is on the right side of the screen. I thought it was appropriate to show our past president, Tawny Poe, who was president about 4 and 5 years ago, and now is retired, of course, and is enjoying retirement, as you see there, giving a thumbs up to the project management teams. So I think he believes that we're in good hands here and doing well. Some of you may have not worked with the OCIP or CCIP, and again, this is on larger projects, either with a general contractor or direct with the owner. And basically, it's a wraparound insurance that they will control, either the general contractor or the owner, and basically provide coverage for the entire project, not including offsite work involving our project. So you got to keep that in mind. We still have insurance outside of the project itself, liability outside of the project. For instance, equipment that's offsite, our vehicles that are offsite, so forth. This only covers any incidents within the project site. There is a major cost impact when you see this requirement in your bid package. You got to be familiar with it. It could be anywhere from 1% to 4% of your construction costs of your bid cost. The actual costs and premium for this is based on many factors. So there's risk factors, EMR. They take account of subcontractors EMR. And so that's very important that we keep our EMR lower than 1% or 1.0. Anything above that, and they start considering us a risk and increase our insurance. The bid package documents will typically indicate that this is a OSIP or a CSIP insurance project. So you have to keep in mind when you look at this, what that percentage impact will be. The reason for that is that our insurance will basically give us the difference in costs if the cost is being picked up by the owner or the GC. So our insurance company at the end of the year, and keep this in mind that this only happens annually, it doesn't happen monthly. You have to keep track of the costs that impact on that OSIP or CSIP. You need to do it under your WIP and P&Ls. Identify that there is some costs associated with the OSIP and CSIP that you're being drawn on, so that Victor can make the adjustments at the end of the year, which would be our fiscal year. It only happens once a year. It doesn't happen according to your project. So bear in mind that it could be 1 to 4% variance on your project in your WIP and P&Ls, generally the P&Ls. So you got to keep track of that. The other factor that you have to be concerned with is that if the contractor is charging you 4%, let's say on the high side, and our insurance is only covering a certain amount of that cost, there is a difference between what the owner's carrying and what our insurance is carrying. So that will impact your job. You need to factor in that the difference between 1 and 5%, whatever that percentage difference is in your estimate. And I believe that's it, unless you have some text questions, which I can't hear you, so.
I want to talk yet about Western LA project management philosophy, but we're out of time, so. Can anybody give me a concise description for a project manager? What is a job description in some kind of concise manner? Managerist, yeah. Technical leader, all that, yeah. Anything else? To me, it's whatever it takes to finish the job successfully, safely, with maximum profit. And sometimes maximum profit means no profit on some jobs, but maximum profit, whatever that means, right? For us, project managers are a little bit different than what a project manager is in a different company. I can't speak for other mechanical contractors because I work for another mechanical contractor, but we do work alongside electric contractors and plumbers and fire sprinkler guys. You guys have all seen them on jobs. You don't see their project managers a whole lot. You see their foreman out on the job site with the table set up, with the plans out, and that's the guy that's usually putting together RFIs and putting together material requisitions and all that kind of stuff. We're different. Our management style has always been to manage through project managers, not through foremen. Most of our foremen are working foremen on almost all of our jobs. They're working foremen out there. We do better as a company if they are wearing a tool belt and, you know, getting things installed or getting things fixed and started up or whatever that is. So it's our job to do whatever it takes to keep them moving. That's the general philosophy. That's mine. Facilitator, technical advisor. I mean, most of us in here are engineers. And if you're not an engineer, you're somebody who's got a lot of experience and has the know-how and know what you're looking for. This. Chad brought up something earlier when we talked to the supers this morning. We said, hey, we're having this project management meeting. Is there anything that we should bring up? He's already mentioned that. One thing that they brought up was getting answers to the guys. Right now, those field guys have actually, we've slowed down in the field. So we need to do anything we can do to get answers out in front of them. If we're waiting for RFI responses, or we're waiting for, I don't know, a structural engineer to give us a detail on something, we want to be out pushing for that, or a change order, right? Go out pushing, let's try to get that stuff moving along so we can, the guys moving. We've got working foremen. The idea is for us to provide all the support that we can give them to keep those guys moving. We need to communicate with the foreman often. Most of the time, you're talking to your foreman daily, right? You're going out to the job site probably weekly, maybe more if you need it. You know, every job's a little different. I can't say for sure what you have to do on each job, but often, so you know what's going on the job. You're going to be writing RFIs for the guys, not just when they call you and say, hey, I've got a problem here. That does happen. But the idea is that you're staying on top of it, looking through drawings and foreseeing issues yourself, right? Equipment, material, orders, that kind of stuff. When you're out on job sites, walking around, looking for issues, right? We've got good experienced foremen, but sometimes things get installed that aren't perfect. You guys are all familiar with system effects, for example, on fan systems. You're familiar with pressure drops. You know, if you see a high side for a VV box that's constant size for 30 feet and has 3 elbows in it, that's going to be a problem, right? Hopefully that got solved before it got onto a shop drawing, but stuff happens. So
it doesn't have straight bleed in into the box, and it's got it. I've seen it multiple times. We've got a 90-degree elbow down and an elbow right into the box. Just
yeah. So you're thinking from an engineering perspective, is this a good idea? Can we fix it? Should we fix this? Big thing for me, access issues to equipment. Coming from a service background, I mean, seeing equipment shoved up against a wall or pipes or conduits running right in front of your access is a big deal. You want to help alleviate those things. Sheet metal guy puts up a V&V box, he's done with it, right? Then a fitter comes by and runs some pipes right in front of the access panel in front of the box, or maybe the electrician runs right in front of it, something like that. Look out for stuff like that and try to get it fixed before it gets too far along. Waterproofing is another big one. Not a lot of people have a real good concept of how to waterproof something, any penetration going through the roof. And it's like one of the most expensive issues we have when we have that issue, right? We have water intrusion into the building. You own that for a long, 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 long time. If you have any questions about waterproofing, I'd be happy to go over staff with you, talk to Brian, talk to, anybody. But we're talking about penetrations like pipe supports or duct supports or duct going through a roof or flashing for a package unit. Anytime you're penetrating the roofing membrane, you're at risk of some kind of waterproofing, water intrusion issue. So be aware of that. Basically anything that doesn't look right, talk about it. Now, if you see something that's not right, you got to address it with a foreman, right? Most of the time, foreman. So how you approach those guys, Chad talked about communication, that's kind of a big deal. Definitely want to give the foreman the respect they deserve. All of those guys out there have been through 5-year apprenticeship program. They turned out as journeymen and they proved themselves enough to become a foreman, right? So keep that in mind when you're talking to them. That doesn't mean they know everything. You guys don't know everything either. It's a collaborative type thing. We're going to talk about all the issues, the specifics. You're going to respect them. You want to gain their respect too as you're doing this, and you do that by really learning what their trade is. I expect you guys to know what you're doing and be an expert at your job. I also want you to know what they're doing and be able to talk to them about how they're installing something, or have an understanding of what the challenges are, right? And take it a step further, understand what the rest of the trades are doing out there. Understand the whole general construction process and the sequence of building a building or renovating a building or whatever you're doing out there. If you can understand all that stuff and help them do their job better, help them foresee things, that's gonna help you gain their respect, right? Most importantly, when your foreman calls, answer the phone. If they're calling you, it's because they need something. And I've said before, it's probably one of the most important calls that you'll take all day. Yep. Talk about dealing with clients. So I think contracting's changed quite a bit over the last couple of decades. We're no longer dealing with those crusty old general contractors that just like to yell and scream, except for a couple. Yeah, things except for Jackson Miller rolling his eyes. Okay, if you're dealing with TI contractors, you might be dealing with those crusty old guys. And so,
Thanks, Jackson. Yeah, jumping on that grenade, thank you.
With the bigger guys, you're looking at a younger crowd that is college educated. You know, usually they're coming out of some project management or construction management program, right? Or engineers that are going into project management. They're not calling us subcontractors anymore. Now we're trade partners, right? So it's a different environment. It's friendlier, trade. That's what we are. We still need to set ourselves apart, and this is really the crux of it. What is Western LA project management? It's all going to boil down to freaking everything. You guys are the everything that moves this along. Field guys are making it happen. They're putting the stuff in the air, but we're here to make sure that we see the big picture. Everything's going to be good, right? But we're dealing with these contractors. I believe we had the most success when we treat our clients the way we want to be treated by our vendors, right? And we all have a favorite vendor, and they probably treat us all a little bit differently depending on the relationship with these guys. But that can mean a lot of different things. Communications, very important. Picking up your phone when a client calls, just like when your foreman calls. You guys all know which vendors out there will pick up the phone when you call and which ones go straight to voicemail, right? And it's, you know which ones. And you like to call the ones that you know they're going to pick up the phone. And if you have a choice, those are the guys you're going to work with, right? Our clients feel the same way.
Okay. The customer is calling you because they need something. I'm calling you.
Yeah.
That's it. Say that to the phone. He's not calling you to check in on you. He needs something.
So you're going to be responsive. You're going to follow through. If you tell somebody you're going to get it done, you know, don't wait 2 weeks or whatever. Somebody's waiting on you to get something done. Be proactive. You want to find and suggest corrections for design before it's installed, right? You want to find quality control issues out in the field before it gets too late. And this is, I saw something one time. We can fix our own mistakes, right? And we can even tell people we made a mistake. We were doing a Fox Theater out in Riverside. There is a project management meeting. This is an old historic theater, 1925. Project manager meeting was just getting started, and this painting contractor came in. His job was to do murals, like hand-painted murals, right? Old theater, they're all through the lobby. They're inside the theater part. Freaking like Sistine Chapel stuff, yes. Hand-painted stuff on the ceiling. And this guy comes in and like, he's like, sorry, I'm late, man. I was just checking out the proscenium and I didn't like what we did over there, so I'm going to have him redo that. Blew me away. I was like, well, GC's in the room, the owner's rep is in the room, and everybody in the room was like, this guy's for real. He's going to give you quality work, right? Yeah. If you can find a small mistake on a job site and point it out and say, we're going to take care of this, no one else has to tell you to do it, that's huge. You just gain a whole bunch of trust right there, right? It's a good thing to do. Finding issues, own up to mistakes. If you didn't find the mistake, somebody else found the mistake, and hey, we need you to fix this. Fix it. Don't complain about it. Fix the mistake. We want quality work out there. I've got 2 stories with this. I want to, one where we fixed our mistake and we were heroes, and one where somebody didn't fix a mistake and they're zeros, right? First one's Lee. Lee screwed something up big time. He can't talk. You got him. So this is out at Teva several years ago. It was a weekend hot tap. We were supposed to get a pipe fitter out there. It was going up on a scissor lift. You know the story? Yeah. He's going to hot tap into, I think, the hot water system, right? And what he actually did was go up on the scissor lift and hot tap into a stainless steel clean steam line that's needed for the pharmaceutical production. Yeah. How do you weld that on there and make it look good? I have no idea, but I'm told it actually looked pretty good and held. It helped. So I got down, realized it was a problem. Teva was just furious. Yes, furious. Like, because we need to be back up and running, and we have to have tested and clean steam for us to go into production. And if we can't get this going, this is going to cost us a fortune, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Lee was out there same day. This was a Saturday thing, right? He's out there within an hour and directing people what to do. This is what we're going to do. He found a process piping company that could get out, cut out this section of stainless steel pipe, weld in the new stuff, insulated, had everything up and going before they were ready to start manufacturing on Monday. It had already been tested, proven to be clean, and they didn't miss a beat. Wow. Cost us a fortune. Yeah. Right? But in the big picture, it didn't. We could have lost a client that day, but we didn't. We actually looked like a hero because we screwed up and we turned around and took care of it without asking any questions, without wasting time, without pointing any fingers like, "Are you gonna tell us what pipe?" No, we owned up to it, got it fixed, and Lee's got it. He's still doing work with that, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to close them.
Oh, besides that, yeah, that was huge.
Because no one lost it after that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Fix it. Let them know you fixed it. Let them know you're happy to fix it because it needs to be fixed, right? The other example is AirTech. This is out at one of our owner developer clients out of Nelson, I know. They were installing a chilled water coil in a built-up penthouse fan room system. Same time that we were doing a DX built-up penthouse, exact same time. We finished, ours looked beautiful. I mean, the coils are all nice and tight, very hot. Theirs, the coils were not so tight in there. There's gaps all the way around. I don't know if you ever saw that. There's gaps all the way around it. So what would happen is air would bypass the coil and turn into a fog into the room, and it was all moist. And it was like wet when you walked in. There was moisture on the fan and all that kind of stuff. The owner said, "You need to take care of this." And they said, "It's Western Allied's fault. They're not closing the outside air damper when it's too wet or something like that." Isn't the coil, air is saturated when it comes off the coil anyways. I don't know what difference that makes, right? It took months. We went out, looked at it, got pictures, did a little survey. Owner kept going back to AirTech and saying, "Hey, we need to take care of this." Ultimately, after a bunch of get this done now, they did. They went out and fixed it. They put sheet metal in and they caulked it. They got all done. It took care of the problem. All the moisture went away. But at that point, damage is done. The owner said, "Hey, you guys aren't going to fix the problems. We don't want to deal with you anymore." And they'd already pissed off the owner. They haven't done any real work out there since then. This is 5 or 6 years ago. Haven't done any real work out there because of that. The stupid part is they spent the money to fix it. They're fixing it no matter what, right? They lost a client over it. If they would have just stood up and said, "We did a crappy job, let's go in there and take care of it," then they could have been the Teva example. The owner could have said, "Oh man, those guys stepped up when they needed stuff." That's important, and that's what makes Western Allied Western Allied. And when you're out representing Western Allied, keep that in mind, right? Let's talk about money for a minute. Everybody in here is responsible for handling a lot of money every day, moving money back and forth, right? We expect that you're going to handle the money like it's your own, and I really hoping that you're good with money. Yeah, right. You asked for it. And just be clear, it's not your own. It's not your own. I can't tell you exactly what that means. Sometimes you need to be thrifty, right? Other times you want to go for quality because it may cost you more down the road. Every situation is a little bit different, but think about where your money is going, how you're spending it. You know, we want to win in the big picture. We want money coming back to us in the big picture. Example, you're doing ductwork, exhaust duct in the shower. It's not showing aluminum or stainless steel. You know to use aluminum or stainless steel because if they're using that shower lot, we're going to be back there replacing it, right? Using those cheap condensate pumps for ductless split systems. We've had problems. Everybody knows that's going to fail within the first year, right? I'm not saying you have to change those out on every job. Sometimes they're flat spec and you get stuck with it. But if you have an option, spend a little bit more and get Brian's shaking his head. He's been through this. We actually tried to get it changed out. They said, no, we want the crappy little pump. And he was out there replacing it, within 4 months, something like that. And
Side note, Little Giants are steel on Amazon right now, like $60.
there you go.
Steel.
Yeah. The only problem is you got to get separate power outlet for it,
Yeah.
right? That's the only thing I need. Ductwork. I've been asking for any good sized job that's got medium pressure splitter mains. I've been asking to get those pressure tested, whether it's specified or not. It's going to save you time and headache down the road. Our guys do great installations, but believe it or not, if they know it's going to be pressure tested, that's great. It's a better job. Yeah. So get it pressure tested, especially if your pins exposed. Yeah, because the noise, and it's just not worth it. We've been working on we've been working on a quality control document, quality control plan, and it's just about done. I'm going to be sending that out a little bit later, but that's actually outlined in there. That'll be something that we should do normally. Another thing with money, don't give out blank checks, right? You're going to go buy something personally. You're not going to give somebody a blank check and charge me whatever you want. Same thing goes for POs. Don't ever send somebody a PO or ask purchasing to say, hey, I need this, please give them a PO for this without knowing the price. Get the price first, get a quote, then you give your PO, right? It's really nice if we can get multiple prices for things, but I get it. You can't always get multiple prices. We sole source R&R a lot. We sole source our insulators a lot. There's a lot of reasons. I get it. I do it too. Where we just want to work with one guy and get it done. I never tell that guy that I'm sole sourcing them though. I say, hey, I need a price for this. Once you get that price, because he doesn't know, he's got to be competitive. So that forces him to keep it down. If he doesn't have to be competitive, same with me, man. Customer comes to me and said, hey, go ahead and start on this and then send me a price.
To the moon.
You could keep him your buddy by saying, our estimating department bid you out. Can you get this price? So I don't-
There you go. We're still on money. Clients don't like to feel like they're being nickel and dimed, just like you don't like to feel like they're being nickel and dimed. If you're working with any controls contractor out there that's doing that to you. Me, I can't speak for everybody in here, and everybody's a little different. Your clients are all a little bit different. But when I'm working with a client and there's a change order that I feel there's a change order needed for whatever reason, well, I ask myself, is this guy going to get paid for this work if I give him a change order? Right. So we're talking about trade damage. Yeah, I'm talking about a little scope gap now, not a big one, but maybe flashings, up on the roof or something like that. They made a mistake, another trade made a mistake, whatever. What I'll normally try to do is make a big deal of it. Like this is money, but we're going to take care of this. Right? You don't ever want to do anything for free. If you're doing favors for somebody, you've got to get credit for your favor. If you're doing it for free and nobody knows about it, you just wasted a bunch of money. So I like to take care of that stuff and make it back later on, whatever that means. I mean, if you're a big enough job, there's going to be legitimate change orders for change of scope. That's where you can build in some of that stuff. If it's a long-term client or client that you're working with a lot, you're going to make it back on another job. And I'm not saying this is for everything, but for little things where you can make it known that, hey, I'm doing you a favor right now, that buys you a lot, right?
I'm dying when I do that.
Yeah.
Oh, my boys, my kids, everything, that stuff.
Well,
I don't want to get them all back.
Yeah. You want to keep track of it. Yeah. Always keep track of it. And at some point, I'd like to put it in writing.
Yeah. I use my boss is going to kill me, but
Absolutely.
And they think they think you pulled all these strings, and in reality, you thought it was going to cost you more.
Absolutely.
I even put it in some schedule of values where it's like pending change order, and then I'll end up putting a $0 there, a $0 amount.
That's a great way to keep track.
And then that way, every time they look at that bill, look, they didn't even charge me for this.
And you know where this comes back?
Because when you hit them with that change order later, that has a number to it, you can show them, look,
right there.
it's right there.
Yeah. Great way to do it. Also, the end of the job, the contractors are typically coming back with a trade damage change order. Their drywall guys hitting them for
Yeah.
$100,000 because of all this nicks and scratches and whatever. And they're gonna split that evenly amongst all the guys. You've got a tool. Hey, I did all this other stuff for you right here, you know, that helps you negotiate that down. So you're gonna get that money back where you can, when you can. I'm not saying get greedy. Don't appear to get greedy anyways, but get it back when you got a chance to make it back. Don't miss that opportunity. It's important, right? Most people in our industry out there fishing for new clients, and it just blows me away that you work so hard to get a new client. I'm gonna get my foot in the door, get my foot in the door. I'm gonna get this job, and you get the job, and then you treat the client like crap. That's not the way we operate. We want the client to be special, so they want to work with us again. I got most of the jobs that I worked on or that our project teams have worked on. Near the end of the job, you hear you guys were the best to work with, or you guys were the only ones that I didn't have to worry about, or something like that. I can tell you a lot of jobs I'm working on right now are project teams that I've worked with consistently. If they go from job to job to job, they just take Western along with us. So we want to keep that in mind. We're really trying to make these guys happy because they're going to go to work with the people that make their life easier, right? They don't want to work with people that are always making life harder, doing change orders for something they don't feel like they deserve, or I don't know, forgetting to put stuff in, whatever it is, you know, not returning phone calls. They want to make project managers for a general contractor or an owner developer, their plates are full too, just as much as yours, and they just want somebody to take care of it.
If I could just add, I think we are a service company. Everybody's company is in sales, in particular. How we interact with our customers on a day-to-day basis is selling to them long term. Because like I just said, they want to work with us long time because Western Allies take care of them, Western Allies on top of it, Western Allies make Western Allies. That is a sales tool. The worst thing in the world is some superintendent writing at the PM about how crappy we did on XYZ job.
Yeah, the super taps and say,
Oh, yeah, without question.
our project manager's got to be happy. The super, if they're bitching about a certain trade, then we're not going to be like, well, I don't want to hear Fred bitching about this guy for the next 9 months, so let's just go with somebody else, you know. That they're all clients.
Yeah.
I've been in interviews for projects, and you know, you get through the technical stuff, the page turn or whatever, but I like to close with, my goal is to make your life easier. If it's this job, I'm going to try to make your life as easy as possible. Excuse me. Again, I'm not, please don't take the wrong impression. I'm not saying give anything away, right? We're going to get this back in the end. The whole purpose is for us to be successful. I'm not saying be a pushover, give it all away. What I'm saying is be accommodating, help where you can, get it back where you can, right? Oh, yeah. Anytime you run into an issue, very important. Find a way to get out of whatever this issue is by throwing it back on us. If somebody's, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you don't know yet, can I do this or can I do that, or whatever that issue is, you can always say, hey, I need to check with Jeff or Matt or whatever, Chad. I don't know. Throw us under the bus if you have to. You can even say, hey, Sanderson told me to do this, you know, and let them call me. Trust me, I can get out of it. I can figure out how to handle that situation, right? So don't be afraid to throw us under the bus.
Yeah, that is, Derek alluded to that earlier. That is a great thing. And that's what I tell my guys. Always okay to blame me. Always okay.
There you go.
And let me tell you, Chad's came in clutch for that a couple times, honestly.
It's easy to blame Chad.
Yeah, I made him look like a bad guy who's taking it well. No, I'm just kidding. But it's nice to know that if I ever have to, like, Chad is, now what he has done before is, you know, a GC's called him and been like, hey, Derek mentioned, and Chad knows nothing of what he's even talking about. We never had that conversation.
Yeah.
But Chad will be like, oh yeah, you know, and he you know, has my back, which has been awesome, you know. And in the end, it's always worked out, which, you know.
Sometimes it's buying time. Maybe a little time to think about it.
Yeah.
And that does that.
Yeah.
what I got. I hope you got the gist of it. I don't know if I covered everything you guys wanted to cover for project management.
The only thing I would add is, I think a good summary is, because when you do it with project managers and not foremen, our job will bring value to the project. That's what we're trying to do. We need value to the job.
Actually, okay, yeah. A little bit on rhetoric, so what John talked about earlier. Communication, nobody makes decisions logically. You think you do, you don't. It's all about pathos and ethos, right? It's about what you feel and what you believe. So what they're just saying to you is make people believe and do a good job. They're gonna trust you, they're gonna give you the money. If you just vomit logic on them and you're arrogant, they want to see your personality. They want to know who you are, who they're dealing with. You can tell that immediately. These guys are genuine when they get up and what they're saying. That's part of it. Just be yourself. Don't be afraid. There's really no boundaries outside of just being courteous. You can ask questions. They're just human beings like us when we're working. Sometimes they scare us. Sometimes, after a while, you just get used to it. You're like, yeah, I've told these a million times. But as you're growing through it, just be yourself. Use your gut. Be smart. If you have a question, raise your hand. Common sense stuff. All it is. Yeah.
I guess I'm next. Let's see, it's 1:30 or 1:29. I'm gonna try to close up in the next 5 to 7 minutes, and I appreciate your patience in this. You guys know why I dressed up in black, right? Camera adds 10 pounds, fella. So, the first question is, what does it mean to close out a project? You go to the client, use the as-built, O&Ms, air balance, water balance, I'm done, here's the bill. See you, notification. Is that closing out the job? You're guessing, right? Winner chicken dinner. You probably get away with that kind of method for smaller jobs. But as the job is bigger and more money's involved, it becomes a little bit more complex than just giving them the closeout, warranty letter, and seal. When do we start closing out a job? I don't want you to answer me at that point. I just want you to think about it. We'll answer that question at the end. So the first order of business in closing out a job is actually produce a finishing schedule. Everybody's asking, what the hell is a finished schedule? I got this schedule. I got scheduled up. Then you know where. I don't know what a finishing schedule is. Finishing schedule is what has to be done, as simple as what has to be done, when it has to be done, and we have deadlines. It's usually the last 20% of the job you start preparing to close the jobs. But that doesn't mean you start closing the jobs at the end. Does our estimate have any sections called closing out projects? Where do you put money in closing out projects? Anybody take a guess at? Yeah, Nemo. That's one of them. It's usually, if you take a look at your last sheet on the tab next to the labor, it's called SCAB, right? Well, SCAB has part of the closing jobs. They have to start up equipment, got to make sure the controls is installed, training. That's part of closing out the jobs. Well, the estimate, before you just put down install time and make sure the equipment's there, you actually have to go back to starting to read the bid documents to figure out, especially in a more complex job, what are you on the hook for? Because there's a couple of times P comes up to me or PM comes up to me, I did 2 years of warranty. Oh, only now? Well, we're on the hook for 2 years. Read the specs are your rules, your drawings are your guide, and there's always a fine print that you have to figure out what are you gonna look for. So every bit time, be careful of what your obligations are in closing documents. So let's look forward. I know this is small. If you guys want it, I can give you prints. I'll go through as fast as I can. Before you can close out a job, you have to actually know the lingo of your clients, especially the GCs, when it's substantial completion, final completion, or beneficial. Well, substantial completion is they could occupy the facility and use the facility with only minor punch lists. As long as it's safe, they could occupy it. So basically, you're handing over, hey, take it. We got a little bit of things to fix, but if you don't take note of your punch list, you really get bad, because when the clients or customers start using the facility, then your punch list, this is not done, this is not done, you're gonna look silly. So that's completion. Final completion, you know, everything's done. You're submitting your 100% billing, your retention, you got all the paperwork in there. You're ready to walk off the site, close this, tell the county, close the jobs. That's final completion. Everything's done. Well, beneficial, we don't run into this, but there is called beneficial practical completion. That's part of, the owner has services, especially with like clean rooms, labs. They have to do some further work. Their subcontract is going to continue on your work. You're obligated to finish up to a point. Well, when you do that, you have to kind of document your completions, take pictures of how much it's done. Obtain sign off of what is done, and that everything on beyond that point is the owner or the client's obligation to pick up. And be very careful when you do that. So just I know on the different stages of completion. The punch list. When do you start a punch list? Day one. What Matt alluded to on the P&Ls is he said, Saul, take a picture of, take a set of plans, highlight them, so you know what's done. Take that plan as your guide to start developing a punch list. Don't add up all your punch lists at the end and say, hey, go fix it. Go along the way. Make trips to the job site. Check out what needs to be done. Oh, you missed this section where it needs to be rectified. This happens a lot in controls, believe it or not. We did a job, we're all done, and this control contractor, Siemens, their punch list, no kidding, is over 100 items. They had 3 sets of project managers that went through. And I think, yeah, we're finally done this past January. So you're dealing with an external controls contractor. That's probably, you're more exposed to punch list items than if we do it our own controls. So not only do you have to check your work, you have to check your subs work. So be careful when you sub out your controls. Request a formal written punch list. Hopefully the punch list at the end, because you've been fixing issues along the way as you progress through the project, that should be written. There's no verbal stuff. The super says, you got to fix this, fix that. Well, if he doesn't want to write it, put it in an email form. Here's a list of the punches that you said. Send it back to him. It's just confirming email saying, hey, this is it. Otherwise, he's just going to ramble on and on. You go back to the job site, you're going to go, what the heck? It's endless. You got to get a written punch list going, and especially from the client themselves. If you get the punch list at the end and you've already turned over the project site to the client, And especially if it's a testing or labs, it's going to be a heck of a time getting back into that. We do a lot of research labs, a lot of skills, and to correct 1 or 2 items, it takes maybe 3 to 4 weeks. The users have to pull off, you have to go in just to fix a leaky duct. So try to get a punch list before you actually turn over the site. Some clients are kind of want to see things by. Go add on punch lists that are additional work or maintenance items. Kind of have to be careful. You don't have to be a jerk and say, no, that's not on a punch list. You can say, yeah, we can, what do you call it, take care of this for price and that. It's not part of it. Be kind in your communication. And that's why it's always, we want to do a great job, but don't overcommit. And,
Yeah, talk to your field team about it too, because there's those customers that love going, hey, can you take care of that for me too while you're at it? Can you do this over there while you're at it? And you will be amazed. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do for this guy? And I didn't get paid because the guy on the site's nice and he's the guy running the job. And of course, we all want it home. So the guy's like, yeah, okay, we'll go do this, go do that. And you're really getting into more trouble than you know.
that's a great point. So if your foreman is giving favors, have them send you, tell your foreman up front, at the end of the job, if you do any favors, let me know so I can keep track. So at the end, when the GC says, we're gonna split the cost of this drywall over this, hey, we've done this for you. You might escape that cost being, incurred on your job. So that's a great point, Jim. Quality control and other, other documents. Where are they? Pressure tests, tabs, you know these things, as-built operation manuals, non-conformance report. What the hell is that? I've never heard that term. You guys even know what it is? But if we hire engineers because we want to be expert on non-conformance report using these signs, it's not going to work. Man. You have a dilemma. Do I tell the owner? Do I do this? Do I do that? Well, a lot of times we try as project managers and project engineers to tell them, hey, if you do it this way, it's going to get screwed up. It's going to end bad for you. It's not going to pass the test. I had a project skip. I told GC, the way you do it, guess what? When they did the skip testing, TC testing, it took them 6 months after we left to fix it. And I heard it from the client. These guys are knuckleheads. I said, I told them, but they didn't want to hear it. But at one point, I did send an email that you're not going to pass the STC rate. You can do it this way. Cover our bets. But that doesn't have to be at the end. That has to be documented somewhere. Of course, sign off punch list, you got that, and make sure that after you hand this over, or you get the key sent, please confirm the receipt. Get that receipt. 9 out of 10 times, no problem. The one time you're gonna have an issue is, oh, I didn't get that. Well, I didn't get it, so I'm holding up your billing. Teresa, your billing's cost me up, I've always had this problem with PEs, this particular PE, because I could never get collected because the closeout document's never been sent, and she has proof with all her email thread. See this thing, they're complaining. Get acknowledgement. Yes, receipt. Thank you. File it, keep in your documents. So that's important.
Is this on the chair drive?
Never targeting you, Mark. It's just general. I've heard it from several teams. I get the last news of why projects aren't closed out. Because I work with the county directly, and I don't hound any of you guys, but I do hound my partners to interact with you to get that taken care of. So stuff rolls downhill. Well, that's the way we do it. As built, on the contract documents, know, or the specification, know what you're obligated to. It could be simple as red marks, but do it along the way, so at the end, you don't go, oh, what happened? Yeah, I'll just draw this in. Some clients will check on what you install. You don't want to be caught saying, this is drew in, and the client's going, do you want to come out here and take a look at what your estimate is? Make it a point to visit this job site, know what actually he has. It's actually what we installed. It's embarrassing when you get caught that way. I had a great, one of the great supers that we, not supers, foremen that we had, he retired. He was a simple TI job. He called, he says, yeah, this is the as-built. He red marked it, looks pretty and stuff. I go, I don't think it was installed this way. I went to the job site and after he's gone, I said, not this way. So sometimes foremen get into a rush. Hey, I just got to give this to you. I'm on the next job. Big time to go back, check it out. Warranties, guarantees. Again, check the specification and drawings. What are you obligated? Especially nowadays that units having compressors have a 5-year compressor warranty. If they do, you need to know, get the contact information for the vendor. You have to include that into your warranty. And fillers are that way. Maybe they bought external, what do you call, extra warranties for their equipment. They don't want, you don't want them calling you and then you calling the vendor. Actually, the vendor actually wants them calling the service and they'll set up the service account. So that's important to get from the vendor.
I got a question for you on that, John. When you're buying equipment, especially when you time thing, you're on some things, there's stuff that sits. So in our purchasing department, because I'm not sure it's a question, are we lining up our equipment purchases with the warranty terms?
That's a good question. Usually the warrant, because of this cost escalation, we want to get the equipment sooner than later. But unfortunately, equipment manufacturer has a warranty 12 months after startup or 18 months after delivery. So sometimes if you know that you're not going to need the equipment for 24 months, you might want to buy an extra warranty so that it could be aligned. Yeah, or pressure more for it. Depending on how much business you will, some equipment rep will give it to you and give you that extra warranty, some won't. But if they won't, you gotta get a cost. And you have to you could actually usually pass that warranty on to the client and then to the landlord because of these issues. I had it both ways, so that's a good question. Commissioning. Commissioning could be as easy as plug it in, flick the switch, oh, it's running, see you. Or if you're commissioning a whole facility, oh my gosh. You got a commissioning agent, you got the owner's rep, you got the billing engineer that may be going on walks with you. It could last 3 months. Check the specs of what they want. Get that commissioning plan early on because you're going to be on the hook for it. If you don't specify your proposal, I only got 40 hours of this, I need 200 hours on it. It's negotiable if you bring it up front. And especially when plans don't have or specification doesn't have any commission plan. There's a point of discussion with the
Each guy.
Yeah.
For a while, we were just excluding commissioning altogether if we weren't clear on what we're doing. Back when commissioning was a lead thing, right? Commissioning is not a lead thing anymore, it's a requirement. Title 24. You can't exclude somebody that's legally required to finish that job. So we have to do commissioning, but if you can find a way to save yourself, you know, the number of hours that you put into it, maybe part of it, making sure you understand the commissioning plan is a big part of it. Make sure you're covered.
Absolutely. When you sub out the controls, it gets worse.
Yeah. Can I say something on that? The GSA project that's been around since I came back. When we started that job, we had what was it, $75,000 change order on the job altogether. But if it wasn't for MCOR warning me about their system, I would have been on the hook with the GSA, because they said the building engineer plays with the static pressure on the unit, thinking he's saving energy. So that therefore you don't have the static downflow. So he said, I highly recommend you do a survey prior to starting the job, because all those VAV boxes that they told you to leave in, they're not going to work. So we went in, we did the survey, and we proved them. They had low static. We oversized boxes. Brian had to deal with a few different other items. Bottom line was, at the end of the project, before we finished the design, we said, hey, look, we can't guarantee this is going to work, but we did all the precautions up front that we can on through the design phase of the job. And at the end of the job, basically Mark Fuller from MCOR, he says, it just CYA you on the end, and it did. And at the end of the project, there's this guy named Reggie out there. I dealt with him through Interior Plus, and we got out of there. I'm probably never going to do a job with GSA again, though.
That's a great story. My story, commissioning last year was Siemens, 200 points. The commissioning agent, two commissioning agents, just not one, two. Siemens, when can you finish? When can we test? Building's occupied. Oh, we can't test on regular hours. We got students. You can only test on off hours. It was a nightmare. So beware.
I mean, controls issues are there's like sometimes there's not a lot of delineation. There's not a finish line to that. That's always the problem with automation, is some way to find a definitive finish line. Either it's a performance test, or hey, by the time you finish half, because control is going to go on forever and ever and ever. So you tinker touches does something you don't know about it.
It can. JCI had a job, a lab, 25,000 square foot. Everybody's off the job. It's cleaned off. I'm at JCI 2 times a week for 6 months. We finished their commission and the medicine system. It was the beta version that they installed in my client's lab. It was crazy. Operating maintenance manual and training staff. You guys know what it is. Installation, operating software details. So again, stress, manufacturer's warranty, and contact persons on their end. If spare parts are needed, make a list of it, get a sign up for the spare parts, turn it over, label what it is. But most importantly, videotape training, if there is training, no matter if 15 minutes or half an hour, they'll save you a lot of headaches at the end, because, we forgot a couple of texts. When you send out training, well, you send one of our guys out there, 4-hour minimum and $150 a pop, it's going to hit your job, right? So, yeah, here's the video for it. That's why GCs like to videotape a lot of stuff. But if you're prime, in the habit of videotaping, or one of those, get rich out there, videotape training. Operation maintenance. Guess what? We got a service department. When do we get them involved? Halfway through the project, somewhere on the project. This, it gets a chance for our maintenance, our service guys, get in front of the client, sell them their maintenance program. Guess what? Their profitability is much bigger than ours. So if you guys can get them signed on, it's better for the company. And the other benefit is you keep that client. So when they in turn need to replace their equipment, we go back to Western Ally. We're not going back to anybody else. You might get price check, but at least they have the trust in us to come back. We have the opportunity to replace their equipment. Spare parts, make sure you get signed off. You guys need to go into the specifications to find out what your spare parts obligations are, whether it's filters for 3 months, belts, whatever it is. It usually says in the specs. just make sure during bid time, what you're in them for. Miscellaneous equipment rentals. You guys gotta close them out. You gotta get the list out of there. You gotta get the offices out of there. One thing I didn't know, those sticking recovery cylinders are about $400 a pop. When Tony Poe was president, we had to settle on not returning those cylinders to a tune of $36,000. After they're done, tag them, get them back. You, to the company, whether it's RSD, or if you could actually use Tiller Service to help you recover, whatever may be the case, keep track of those cylinders. That's money that you don't have to pay and we don't have to pay. Make a list of what you need. That could be small hogs, it could be a list. Find out how much it is. Keep a track of the cost. Because a lot of times, you know, if you don't keep costs and you don't know when it's being pulled off, their rental company's going to keep on charging. We had a fencing company that keeps on charging our job for 4 months. We didn't know about it. You know, my project manager, Jackson, heck is this? No one, they're off the job, close their account for that particular job, settle the amount. Okay, so you'll find out when your POs and you do P&Ls, if you guys and girls do it regularly, you'll find out. Clean off, walk it with your lead foreman, or if lead foreman isn't available, walk it with supers, take pictures, because sometimes you're cleaned off and it's a clean area and other subs are not off the job. Guess what? Their stuff is in your laid down area. And GC said, hey, get your box out of here. We're cleaned off. Here, here's the picture. That's not our stuff. You want to send your guys back to clean off. Take pictures. You got a phone with a camera. It's not for taking selfies, you know, with your family.
Take a polar.
Yep. Ladders are expensive.
Yeah. And clean off like my favorite foreman are guys that actually return material.
Yes. When they return material, find out when they return the material, tag it. Because you know what? Our trucking company, they clean off a lot of jobs. And if they don't know if it's return to stop, guess where it goes? A big old 40-yarder traffic. So find out what's coming back, when it's coming back, take inventory. And tell them, hey, put this over here for right now, so that we could, we could stock it somewhere else. Great point. And that's funny.
Is there a place in the yard where we can like store returned material for later use?
Well, we're working on it right now. We're reorganizing our yard, and it's right now it's kind of a mess, and we realize that. So there will be a place, what we call the boatyard, and we'll advertise that for everybody. So if the foreman says, "Hey, we need this," you go to the back before you place the order. Yeah, we got this. Take that, or have our shop guys take it, put it aside, label, for the foreman to pick up. That saves a lot of money.
We might have pipe and fitting. I'm assuming that we can do funds from the vendor.
Yes.
Yes.
Uncut pipe.
Uncut pipe.
20-footer, you can't return 10-foot pipes, but uncut pipes, yes. Closing out subcontractors, I know I'm on a time limit. Make sure they pick up all the punch lists. Ask them for a punch list throughout the thing, throughout the project, so you know you're not caught at the end waiting another 3-4 months for them to close out. Great thing to do is review their performance, the safety, and tell us about it. That alleviates the headaches that we have to go through, experiencing these subs. And sometimes they're not even responsive to you. A lot of times their PM is go straight to voicemail. Share that. Make sure you check the subcontracts, make sure they're fully invoiced and paid, because Victor and his accounting department will not close jobs unless they're fully paid. We had one job, it was closed, and it didn't invoice us, we didn't know. We owe $50,000. Legally, we can't say, can't keep it. They can claim that money, even 2 years from having the jobs closed. So, be a good sport. Have you invoiced fully? If they say yes, you got a record, then you claim it. Otherwise, you have right to that money. Okay, financials, last steps. Run P&Ls, job cost history report. That tells you open close. You can see the open close of POs, some contractors. Just double check all the numbers. Make sure there's no outstanding monies that you owe somebody or we owe somebody. More importantly, is the change orders that's owed to us. Did we miss anything? We want to collect on it before the project is closed out. You may have missed, and you might say, hey, sorry, you owe us this change order. Once the project is closed on their end, it's harder to get that money from your client. So double check all the numbers. We want to resolve all the queries and disputes before the project's closed out. We're doing a lot more prevailing wage projects, and there's surety and bonds that's included in that. Well, make sure that if you want your sureties and bonds back, you have formal requesting a jobs closed, and we do it. Can you release that? So the surety company doesn't start billing us extra if the project is done and they're not notified, make sure they're notified. That's an important part.
Will Victor do that automatically at the closing of the trust?
It may be later, because he's so inundated with a lot of stuff. Sometimes, you forget, but yes, Victor normally does it, but we could take it a step further and help him out. He's got a lot on his plate. We put a lot on his plate. And make sure the project records are all archived, move the electronic folder to the completed projects in our server. And don't delete them. We need them sometimes for references. Also, it would be good to provide lessons learned for everybody to learn. Good and bad, you can always learn something. A lot of times more bad, but I'm sure there's some good lessons that we can learn from. So basically, I just want to thank all of you for attending the seminar, and I want to thank the partners to present. If you have any questions, if you want a portion of the slides, I think Matt has it, and he could distribute it for you as a checklist. So, go Western Allied, right? Oh, whoa. Warranty work. I forgot.
I always just forgot.
Oh, we forgot. No callbacks, but warranty work, you gotta just remember, if the project's closed out, hasn't been closed out in that fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends 10/31 every year. Doesn't change with time, doesn't change with lunar eclipse or anything. That ends. But if you're done with the project in June and there's a callback for warranty in September, charge it to the original job. If the project is closed, say you've done the job in June of 2022, the county closes it, put it inactive or taken off the list, and there's warranty work. It depends on the dollar amount. If it's less than $1,000, put it into the warranty for the current year, which should be with 000 at the end. Project manager or team member, the current year 000. If it's more than $1,000, pull a separate job number, put a $1 contract figure, and 99 on your estimator. And on the comment section right here, write warranty for the original project, so we know what's that for. And so basically that's their warranty section. Yes, cool. Thank you.
Sounds good.